So, funny story. Back in September, I had a customer come in, and they always, tell you these like funny stories, or tell you like, they think that we're was it Miami Ink? They come in, they got to tell you their life stories, and this lady comes in. I'll never forget this customer from Canada, and she was telling me about the time that the reason that she wanted a thistle tattoo, and I was like, oh man, that's kind of cool, and so she starts off on this tangent, and she tells me about she lost her husband, and I was like, oh man, that's horrible, like you always do. You just kind of feel for them a little bit, you kind of empathize with them, and then she tells me the entire story. And she's sitting back, and one day she came home, and her husband was gone. And she's like, looked around, couldn't find him anywhere, and she didn't think anything of it. A couple days later, he's a missing person. And so she goes off and, starts talking to her family, starts talking to the police, puts out a missing person. And so apparently her in-laws didn't like her, or they told her that that her husband was telling them that they were having marital issues, and that he was going to leave her, so she thought he was gone. He thought he up and bailed, and so she turned around and filed for divorce. And it was a sad time in her life. She filed for divorce. Divorce is final. It's kind of a proxy divorce in Canada, I assume. Turns around, and they find her husband's remains in a field behind their house. And apparently her husband got eaten by a bear. Now, ain't that some shit? Her in-laws convince her to divorce her husband, and she finds out the poor guy has passed away dead in a field. It's kind of sad. And she literally screwed herself out of her insurance money, turns around, and she's no longer allowed to, she can't, get anything back. And all because, somebody jumped the gun and said that her husband was like leaving her, and she was all sad and stuff. So she comes in and she gets a tattoo, and this lady is like super sweet, really, probably one of the nicest customers you could probably have. She comes in with her brother, and she tells me this story, and I'm like, oh man, you just feel for the woman. It's like, what do you do? So we're sitting there talking, and she turns around and tells me about how she coped with it. And I was like, man, I don't think I could cope with something like, divorcing my husband and then finding out he's been dead in the field the entire time. But so she started a business up in Alberta, Canada, and this is true story. She started a goat yoga business where she does yoga out in the middle of a field with goats literally standing on her. Like, the fuck is goat yoga? So I had to check it out. I went out to her Instagram, and I was like, no shit, this is a real thing. Like, people really do yoga with animals standing on them. And so she financed this whole thing in lieu of her husband dying and her jumping the gun and divorcing the guy. Kind of sad, but it was an interesting story at the tattoo shop. So, yeah, that's about the most interesting story I have today.